Hey, it's Andrew Downs. I'm proud to support Three Beards Media, and I would love to work with you. If you need merchandise for your company, organization, band, softball team, whatever, I can help. From name brand apparel to promotional items, large orders or small, online stores, and more, I can help your brand stand out. AKC Marketing is local, based in Johnston, and we are an employee-owned business, so our costs are low and our turnaround times are fast. But most importantly, we give you personal service to make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. Email me at andrew@akcmarketing.com or find me on social media and let's make some cool stuff together. Now sit back and enjoy this Three Beards Media podcast.
All right, good night, everybody. It is Andrew Barber here and Drew Shipley as well. And we are, it's been a rough one lately for Iowa fans. Last night was rough, especially rough for the men. 2-point loss to Oregon. Had a couple chances at the buzzer, couldn't convert. That's it for the Fran McCaffrey era. That's one of the lasting memories that we'll have. And now, again, we're questioning Big Ten tournament. So, Drew, did you watch anything to take away other than what I stated?
I watched the first half, and then it was kind of nighty-night for me. The 7:30 Central Standard Time start. And I'm telling you, like, I'm working 10, 12-hour days, so, like, I'm in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock at the latest these days.
Yeah.
Like, I feel so old. I saw we were down, I think we were down 7 at half. I really didn't think, if I was being honest, I thought the game was already over. You know what I mean?
I mean,
like they didn't have a lead. They couldn't build momentum. I don't know if they ever tied the game in the second half. I mean, like I said, I only watched the first, so I don't know what the second half looked like. I mean, it seemed like we scored enough points, like I've kind of been saying all year long. Like more times than not, you should win games not 90% of the time scoring that many points in college basketball. It's the fact that we were like one of the – I don't know what our KenPom defensive ranking is these days. Have you looked at that lately? Because it's got to be –
150s.
That's pretty generous.
No, yeah, it's 150-something.
That's generous.
Is
200 teams worse than Iowa on the defensive end? I find that hard to believe.
There are.
Wow.
Yeah, defensive rating specifically.
I'd love to see those other 200 teams play. Then,
yeah, 151, right on the dot there.
It's not good enough, obviously.
Right. Yeah, they came out right after halftime and immediately actually went on a run to tie the game up. And then it was kind of neck and neck from there. Oregon hit some end of shot clock threes from a guy who was 1 for 14 and a guy who was 0 for 7 from 3 on the season.
That's on
one of those was a half court shot at the buzzer because they were out at half court and the shot clock was running down and they banked it in. So just wild stuff. But Josh Dix and Peyton Sanford each had good looks that should have gone in to tie the game and go to overtime at the very worst. So I don't know. Evan Braun's played well. That's about the only good takeaway. Evan Braun's had double-digit points and played like 20 minutes and was very physical and very solid.
Yeah, I like his energy. Yeah, that would be one thing I would take away from the last game and a half I watched. Like I said, didn't watch the second half yesterday, but yeah, I mean, he's putting in really good minutes. I like his energy and his effort. He might not be the most skilled guy, but like, you can't ask much more for losing, pretty much all Big Ten player Owen Freeman, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, so that's it. I know, again, like we said before on this podcast, and we'll say it again, they are not quitting. It's just there's a lack of talent now with the injuries. It's just there was a lack of talent before, right? They were fighting an uphill battle before when everybody was healthy. Now that everybody's injured, it's an even more uphill battle, especially against an NCAA tournament team like Oregon is. So that being said, we can just move on to the women. They forced overtime against Ohio State on the road. Promptly didn't do very well in overtime. That's putting it nicely. All the momentum of getting to overtime was quickly squashed. I blame myself because I was getting a haircut during most of the game and missed most of the game. I turned on the last 30 seconds of regulation / overtime. So I'll take the heat, guys. But Drew, your thoughts?
I mean, that's the game that I did watch almost every minute of, so I can help fill in the blanks here. I mean, the last 64 seconds, I believe, Iowa was able to outscore Ohio State 14-4 to get that down. I mean, they were down by as many as 15 in the fourth quarter, I believe. My wife Jenny was saying, I think there was 34 seconds left at the time. It was like, well, they're down by 9. Like, I don't understand why the end of this game takes so long. I hate the end of basketball games, how they take, 10, 15 minutes for the last 30 seconds. I was like, well, there's a reason why they're fouling. They're not giving up. And she's like, oh, I understand that they're fouling and not giving up. But you're like, what really could they do? And I'm like, and then it just unfolded in front of everybody's very eyes. And I said, this is exactly why you play the game out like you do. And I would say, I think we left something on the table on the last possession of regulation where I would say objectively got bailed out on a foul call against Lucy Olson to get to the foul line to tie the game. I think we should have been more aggressive to get a shot up to maybe force another possession. Whether we make that first one to tie it or not, I don't know, right? But I mean, really nothing was going on that offensive possession for a whole 30 seconds. And we cooked the clock clear down to like 3, 4, or 5 seconds, something like that, to get one shot up. Like, that's it, right? Like, we don't make that, the game's over anyway. I think I would have rather got something in earlier in the shot clock to force another possession, if that makes sense, to then go win the game instead of just tying it up from the free throw line. So, I mean, I guess you got to tie it to still be in the game, all things considered, right? 14-4 run to get you there. But I would have liked to seen better use of the clock like they did the first 30 seconds of the final minute of, getting to the first 12 points rather in a span. What did they score? They scored 9 points in 15 seconds, something like that in that minute.
Yeah.
So I would have liked to continue that pace or trend of, they were only making one of their 2 free throws and we were making 3s. You squeeze another possession out of there. So the fact that they got it to overtime was pretty much a miracle, and kudos to them. But then, obviously they were just flat out gassed the final 5 minutes of overtime. They scored more points in the final minute than they did all of overtime. And I don't even know what they scored in overtime. Was it 4 or 5, maybe? It wasn't great. It wasn't a high scoring overtime period.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. Give me a second here. 12-4 in OT.
Yeah, they were cooked. So, I mean, I think it would have been like the football equivalent of going for two to win the game type thing.
Right. Yeah, philosophically, you like not just going for the tie there, going for it. Yeah, I think kind of in the heat of the moment when you're so hot from three and you're kind of
You have nothing to lose. You were down 15 points earlier in the quarter, right?
right. Right. Yeah, you were down 15 points earlier in the fourth quarter. You made this kind of miraculous comeback to even put like actual game pressure on Ohio State. They're on their heels. I think you kind of just have to have the sense that, hey, maybe it's time to you just take the best available shot. I think, whether that's if you want to design something for three, I love that. That's great. But if you want to, most of the time teams don't give that to you in that situation. So
Well, yeah.
yeah, like you
know,
said,
the thing is you chuck up a three and you make it. That means that you're up one with 20 seconds left, and you're forcing Ohio State to have to score early in the clock too.
right.
Or then they have to foul you if they don't make it. So I mean, I think you reverse the full pressure of that by just coming all the way back. And they were getting what they. I mean, a couple of Lucy Olsen's shots were lucky as hell. Let's be honest. So I mean, that was a hell of an effort. But like we were getting open shots, and I feel like we just played iso ball with Lucy Olsen to get that foul call, and pretty much a full shot clock in the final 30 seconds. I didn't care for it. I would have rather played for the win, all things considered.
Yeah, a little part of that people don't maybe remember is a Fulter getting fouled out right before all that happened, especially the overtime.
Yep.
That was actually huge for Iowa because she was really holding her own against McMahon. McMahon still had a great game, but she was really holding her own on the boards and providing some much needed shooting from that 4 spot. When Tegan is in, you don't have that same kind of spacing. So it kind of like crunched everything up for Ohio State. They knew that when Lucy Olsen had the ball, right, she's going for like that mid-range or get to the basket kind of thing. It's so much easier to defend when you don't have at least 3 shooters around Lucy Olsen, right, when she's got the ball. So, yeah.
And philosophically in that game in general, not just like the final quarter, but like I would have loved to see, and I was texting you this like multiple times, is like the one advantage we have athletically against Ohio State was Hannah Stolke on the inside.
Oh yeah.
Whether she was making the shots or not was one thing, but I think it was one of those games where like this is Megan Gustafson's 40-point game. This is Monica Sinano's 30-point game where the offense is running at the rim, for better or worse. I mean, Hannah Stolke at times was just beating up on the freshman guarding her.
Mm-hmm.
And again, whether she was making the shots or not, I think that's irrelevant. I think they went away from that philosophy a little too early because it was working a lot at times. I don't know what her final box score was or field goal percentage, but she was highly effective for most of that game when they got the ball down to her on the block. I mean, she was really beating up on that freshman.
Yeah, Stolke went 5 for 12.
I would have liked that field goal attempt to be like 20.
Yeah, I would have been down with that too. Lucy Olsen attempted 20 shots, 8 for 20, 27 points, 12 free throws as well, 3 for 9 from 3.
Didn't Cynthia Fulter have like 13 points, 15 boards or something like that?
Yeah, 11 points and 15 rebounds, 4 assists.
Highly underrated rebounder. I never really thought of her like that.
Yeah, she's been on a tear rebounding lately. Lucy Olson's been on a tear, scoring, assisting, doing a little bit of everything. I mean, 27, 27, 32, 14 against Minnesota, 28 against USC. But so essentially the last 5 games for her, she's averaging 25 plus and shooting a decent percentage from the field. And we talked about her several times being key to this kind of turnaround for the Iowa women. Now we can kind of maybe shift to the test that they have this upcoming Sunday. It's going to be a fun one against number 3 UCLA, Sunday at 2 p.m. Eastern, so I believe 1 p.m. Central Standard Time for most of our listeners here. And UCLA took a loss to USC, actually.
Yep.
So that dropped them from number 1. I think I said last week they were number 1, but they actually dropped that game to USC. They lost by 11 at USC. But nonetheless, this is a very difficult test, Drew. You watched any UCLA? You know anything about them? Know what they're about?
I know Lauren Betts plays for USC, and she's an All-American. That's what I know.
Yeah, that's true.
I know she was at a University of Iowa target, and if we would have landed her, this team would be a completely different, top tier Big Ten team for sure. But that did not come to fruition, and here we are. I mean, I still think this team's a tournament team. I think you're back in that 8-9 hole firmly right now. Can we get Caitlin Clark in the house for another juiced up Carver Hawkeye? A la the USC game? Well, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, we need some juice in Carver Hawkeye to get it done for sure. And I think there's going to be.
There will be. There will be juice in Carver Hawkeye. We know that the women's basketball fans will pack that place. It'll be loud. Right. It'll be a tough environment for the UCLA women, which is what they experienced at USC. USC actually hadn't had big home crowds, believe it or not. Even though they have Juju Watkins, before that game, they actually hadn't been selling out or anything close to it.
Really?
No. A lot of half-full arenas for USC until UCLA came to town. Rivalry game, Lauren Betts, number 1 team, Juju Watkins, right? Everybody came out for that one. So this is maybe a little bit different for UCLA. They're not maybe going to, as raucous as maybe the USC crowd might have been, I think Carver for a women's basketball game where everybody's hyped is a whole other level that maybe they're not prepared for necessarily.
Tell me this game tips off at 11 a.m.
1 p.m.
Ah, damn.
I wish it tipped off at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
Like you said, Lauren Betts, she's the ultimate mismatch in college basketball this year, in my mind. 6'7", post player. There's just not a lot of teams that have the height to contend with a player of that size in women's basketball.
Yeah.
So they also have good guard play. Kiki Rice has been there for a while. She's kind of their point guard who runs things. And then they have Gabriela Jaquez, who, if that name sounds familiar, Jaime Jaquez, who was at UCLA for 4 years for the men's team. That's his sister.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jaime Jaquez, who plays for the Miami Heat now. Gabriela is his younger sister. This is a good UCLA team. They're number 3. I get the Lauren Betts hype, but this is a good team without her too. This is an NCAA tournament team around her, right? That's why they're one of the top contenders, 1 seed, probably the number 1 overall seed by the end of the year when all is said and done. So, and one of the title favorites, one of the 3 or 4, maybe 5 teams that can win it all in women's college basketball. So, yeah, this is a daunting task for sure for the Iowa women. what do you think the key is going to be to them pulling out a win? If they are going to pull out a win, what is it going to look like?
Getting ugly in the paint. I don't know. You know, like in hockey where you have like goons, right? Like you send out your goon out there to take out like a star player per se, or like distract them from the prize, or like get their head out of the game, or something like that. Like, I see something like, not obviously not to this like hockey level or whatever, but just throw down fight or whatever, but like letting the mismatch happen with an inferior player to then create mismatches for our offense, a la like I'm saying don't put Hannah Stolke on Lauren Betts, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because the one thing that we can't have happen is Hannah Stolke in foul trouble.
Mm.
I say you let Addie O'Grady go out there, let her foul out, and then adjust from there. Let Hannah Stolke get hers, match up differently, athletically, and see where the chips fall there, I guess, is the way I would approach it.
Yeah, I think
he's a big body until you can't use her anymore, and you want to avoid fouling out. Like Hannah Stolke fouled out in overtime as well as Kylie Fearbot. So we ended up with 3 fouled out players by the game's end of the Ohio State game. That's not gonna work against UCLA at all.
Yeah. I think you're gonna see, rather than just straight man-to-man defense, you're gonna see a lot of zone looks from Iowa here. That's tough, right? That's a double-edged sword. But I think you're gonna see some of that junk defense, maybe. Now, UCLA does have decent three-point shooters. I mean, Kiki Rice shoots 35%, Hawkes is 32%, London Jones is 36%, Tamea Gardner's 37%. Probably London Jones and Tamea Gardner probably their best shooters.
Those are all lower percentages than the Ohio State women did against the Hawkeyes last Monday. So I mean, yep. I would take that risk.
Totally. I think that's maybe what Jan Jensen will do, is take that risk. Maybe play some sort of a junk defense like we've talked about before, a triangle and 2. I think probably switching defenses, right? Because there's always that moment of, oh, they're running zone, now we got to run this on offense. And, just it slows everything down. It junks the game up, like you said. It kind of makes things tougher.
Yeah.
So you're saying make it tough physically, but I think you also have to make it tough, like mentally.
Absolutely.
For them as well. You have to make them think as they're playing the game, so they can't just come down, run their stuff, go back and play defense, right?
Right.
And then, some of it comes down to shooting. Like in that USC game, Taylor McCabe is hot right away, and we're just hot. Everything's going in the basket. Now, granted, a lot of that's wide open because we're running good offense. So I think that's what you kind of have to do at home against a high-quality opponent, is kind of seize the momentum that you already have from the crowd, and then kind of hopefully just make that a little bit of something that's just tough to overcome, right? Because once USC was in an 18-4 hole, that's you're climbing uphill the rest of the game.
Well, it turned out that they let it half, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it did. And that still might go that way in this UCLA game. But then I also think there's a little bit of that, like you said, don't put Stolke on Betts, and I think they'll try to avoid that where they can. But also, like we've talked about before, Stolke is going to be a mismatch from beating Betts down the court. No offense to Lauren Betts, she's very athletic. Stolke's just faster, right? And she's just faster than a lot of post players that she goes up against. So that's not anything against Lauren Betts.
I just wish I would have seen more improvement from Hannah Stolke's hands in transition like that. I haven't seen a lot of improvement of, you know what I mean, like clean catches and rim runs.
It does always seem like it's bobbling.
Yeah, like even last year with Caitlin Clark, I mean, there was some improvement there from her like superior passing, I guess. But like I haven't seen a lot of growth moving forward for Hannah, receiving passes from others, rim running on fast break offense. She's just not catching clean. And if she does, it seems like she's already under the hoop, so it makes it difficult for her to come up straight above. So she finds herself under the basket too early, I guess, is what I'm getting at times when she does catch it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I was hoping for more improvement in that regard.
Another thing that would be nice is if you were able to get Lauren Betts in foul trouble. But I was just looking at this; she averages a little bit under 2 fouls per game, and even it's 1.9 for the season, 1.7 for the conference play. So like in conference play, she's averaging less fouls. She has less fouls than for the season overall, which makes sense. She's right around the same mark, but she blocks.
That's impressive for a 5,
Yeah, and she blocks almost 3 shots per game.
Yeah.
So on average. So I don't know. She's pretty good at staying vertical is what that tells me.
Yeah.
When she's going to block shots, she's not bodying people. She's staying vertical. That's tough. You're going to have to like shot fake and hopefully create some contact and maybe get her in a little bit of foul trouble. Or like we said, push the pace, change the game, push the pace, get this game going. But that's not really what this Iowa team does this year, though. They're not the push the pace, get the game into the 90s like the Caitlin Clark era. They can score that many points, but I don't feel like it's their desire to do so necessarily. So, all right. Well, we are going to go ahead and take a quick break from our sponsors, and when we come back, we'll make some predictions and maybe talk a little wrestling. Sound good, Drew?
Sounds good, man.
Making great tasting bourbon requires the perfect combination of ingredients, conditions, and time. The longer it rests, the better it tastes. Revelton Distillery's new single barrel bourbon is made from 80% corn, sourced 100% from Iowa farmers. And unlike mass-produced bourbons, each barrel of Revelton's single barrel bourbon is unique, proofed on when it tastes best. As they like to say, it'll be ready when it's ready. And to ensure the highest standards of quality and flavor, owners Rob and Christy Taylor oversee the production and bottling. Every single barrel. Iowa born, Iowa aged, Iowa bottled. Try the new single barrel bourbon from Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com. Whether you're buying, selling, or refinancing your home, or if it's simply time to renovate the one you're already living in, you need an experienced mortgage professional to help you analyze your financing options and to make sure the closing goes smoothly. And that's exactly what you get when you call Kyle Lehman at Wintrust Mortgage. Kyle's experience and expertise, coupled with Wintrust's rates and programs, ensures you'll get the mortgage that's right for you. You may even qualify for down payment assistance. Before you reach out to a realtor, call Kyle and get pre-qualified, empowering you to start shopping for the home of your dreams. Call Kyle at 515-473-0546. Kyle Lehman, Wintrust Mortgage, 515-473-0546. In 2023, a crack Green Beret named Dan Douglas retired his military command and promptly escaped to a full-time career in real estate. Today, this man is wanted by home buyers and sellers who want to survive the process without spending a fortune. If you have a home to sell or want to buy one, maybe you can hire Dan Douglas at Green Beret Realty. You can find him at greenberryrealty.com. greenberryrealty.com.
All right, we're back, and there's a big wrestling meet going on for the Iowa Hawkeyes. They're number 3 overall right now. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
Nope, you got it.
Taking on number 2 Oklahoma State. So we've already faced number 1 Penn State. Now we're facing the number 2 team. So really, Drew, this is a battle to see who's the second best team in the nation, essentially.
Yeah, essentially, I mean, Oklahoma State's undefeated in duels as well, so they're 13-0 along with Penn State. We got 2 big dual wins last weekend. At number 6 Minnesota, 23-11 win. Most of those points for Minnesota was from like 37-year-old Gable Steveson, who's wrestling in his fucking 14th year, and already like he came back to college because he wasn't good enough to be a professional fake wrestler. So good for him. Happy for him. Great. And then just absolutely smoked Northwestern, I believe, 37-3 on Sunday.
Makes sense.
So, yeah, I mean, what does being number 2 mean, I guess, at the end of the day? I don't know. I mean, I think Iowa has a roster to compete for a national championship points-wise, if that makes sense. Like, it's just not every tournament match is going to be Iowa, Penn State, right? So Penn State's got to get through the bracket just as much as we do. And I think if chips fall where they may, I mean, I think any of these 3 teams could win a national title.
Okay.
I mean, more times than not, I'm still taking Cale Sanderson and Penn State for this particular year. But I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible just because of the nature of how points are scored in the national tournament and the bracketing, and it's just going to depend on matchups and seeding, and we'll see how the chips fall there. I don't know much about Oklahoma State wrestling individually.
Okay.
But I mean, it's going to be a Rock and Carver Hawkeye for sure tomorrow night, 7:30.
I know that kind of traditionally growing up, Oklahoma State was like a powerhouse wrestling program, and then maybe they fell off a little bit, and now they're maybe getting it back. Is that fair?
I think it's fair to like mimic Iowa's rise and fall in wrestling. How about that? I mean, I think they've always been top 10.
Okay.
Nationally throughout my almost entire lifetime. I can't remember what the coach's first name is, but I believe it's Smith. Coach Smith for Oklahoma State. He's been there for freaking ever. I mean, I think he was there when Dan Gable was still in Iowa City. Like, he's been there that long. So like, he's obviously doing something right there. Several national champions.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say it's kind of similar to the rise and fall of the Iowa wrestling program. Being below expectations. Still like top 10 program, but just not challenging for national championships. But now they're right back. Where they believe they should be. Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but we can't see you. I don't know what happened to your camera.
Your browser has lost connection to your camera. Make sure you have the right camera selected. I didn't even change nothing. What's going on?
All right. Technical difficulties. We'll just get some audio from Drew here while you're stuck with me. But
hold on. Hey!
Who knows? Sometimes. It's all right.
Oh man, this podcast is going about as good as Iowa baseball's first weekend in Florida.
Give us the rundown there.
Yeah, they gave up a shit ton of runs in the bullpen, especially. They dropped 2 games to South Florida, down in Tampa, so they are 1-2. Starting pitching has been really good. It's just been the bullpen, which has kind of been Achilles heel of these Rick Heller teams the last 4 or 5 years of just not having pitching go deep enough into the ball game, and bullpens not holding on to leads or tied situations, high leverage situations for the pitching staff. I just don't know if we're not getting talent in the pitching room. I don't know. I mean, they're scoring enough runs to win. But yeah, I mean, it is just the first weekend, but like, I feel like I'm in the same spot as I was last year when I actually went to the Jacksonville tournament. And, we led all 3 of those games, and all 3 of those teams are perennial powerhouses and ranked teams where we lost games like, what, I can't even remember, like 11-9 and 10-8 and 6-5. I think they were all,
Yeah, I remember that.
All games that we led like 6th inning on, and then just couldn't finish for whatever reason. It feels a lot like that already. They head to the Stetson tournament. They play Notre Dame tomorrow morning. So that's kind of the highlight of their Stetson tournament. They play Stetson on Saturday and then turn around and play, UMBC, which of course is University of Maryland, Baltimore County, on Sunday morning before they head back to Iowa City. So hopefully at least 2 wins there and see what they can do against Notre Dame. Notre Dame's kind of a perennial, tournament team. I don't know if they're nationally ranked or anything this year as of yet, but they're usually in the tournament, if not hosting an NCAA regional site. So a big matchup tomorrow morning, and then hopefully get 2 wins on Saturday, Sunday for sure. Get back to 500, hopefully leaving Florida. So,
all right, yeah, that would be good to get back in the win column there. Yeah, big weekend coming up for Iowa athletics. Then the wrestling meet is on Saturday.
Wrestling meet's tomorrow, I believe.
Tomorrow night.
Yep.
Okay. We'll do a quick prediction for the wrestling meet. I'll go ahead and take Iowa. I'll just go ahead and take Iowa and say Iowa wins. I don't know what the score is going to be. I don't know what the line is. I have no clue.
I don't either.
It'll be very similar to a Minnesota meet. It'll be roughly similar to that Minnesota meet, I would say. Maybe a little bit tighter.
I'm thinking it's probably going to be closer to like the Nebraska meet, which was 16-13. I think there's going to be a lot of good wrestling. I don't see a lot of bonus points scored in this one. Unfortunately, I think it's going to be more like the other way around, though. I'm thinking more like 1916 Oklahoma State. I don't know what the lineup looks like. It's hard to project that because they don't announce their lineups sometimes until they go to the mat, right? So we are in national seeding season. So when it comes to like if Oklahoma State's going to roll out their number 1 guy, are we going to go ahead and concede those points and let a redshirt freshman roll out there so we don't trip up like Drake Ayala for a national seed, stuff like that. Like they're not necessarily caring about the dual outcome at this point. They're caring about national seeding for individuals.
Right.
For the national tournament, right? Because after this is the Big Tens. So we're already to postseason wrestling. Tomorrow night. So
okay.
So I don't know how the lineup is going to be rolled out there on either side, if we're being honest. So they might hold their aces back. They might roll them out there if Oklahoma State's rolling theirs back to score points in the meet. I don't know. It's really hard to project this time of year. But for some reason, I just think Oklahoma State gets it done like 1916, something like that. And really not a big factor going into the Big Tens or the national seeding, I think, is what the Brands brothers are going to really play it out to be. So,
okay,
not necessarily the better team is going to win, is what I'm saying. There's jockeying and analytical things to play.
Yeah, I think that's helpful for me and for people listening who maybe don't follow wrestling as closely to understand.
Right. You play to win the game. You play to win every game, right?
Right. I'm used to that mentality with college athletics. It's like every game matters, every game counts. It's that way in basketball and football for college sports. Let's go to Sunday afternoon in Carver Hawkeye Arena. The Iowa women taking on number 3 UCLA. Talked about how tough of a test this is going to be. I'll let you go first.
Well, we're going to keep the Debbie Downer rolling here. I'm going to go with number 3 UCLA, something like 82-67.
Okay.
I see maybe going into the fourth quarter, maybe a single-digit game or something. They just kind of wiggle away out at a double-digit lead and just kind of, work in like fourth quarter where it's just not really in question type deal.
Yeah, I think that the Iowa women are going to, really turn some heads with how they play in this one. Kind of like they did against USC. I'm not going to pick them to win either. But I think it'll be something like 70-64. Maybe a more low scoring game because I just looking at UCLA and kind of the way they play, they don't necessarily want to drive that score up either. So I think this has the potential of being a 4-quarter grinded out kind of game. And I think that will keep it relatively close for all 4 quarters right up until the end. But I think Iowa's going to come up just maybe a little bit short in this one, and that's okay. I don't think this really.
There's nothing to hang your head down about that. I mean,
yeah, I don't really think the outcome of this game really impacts their NCAA tournament in a negative way. If they lose, it can only help them if they win.
Yep.
I guess if they lost by 60 or 70 points or something, maybe it would impact them negatively. But
that's not happening.
That's just not
like it happened to Iowa State when they played like UConn and South Carolina.
Right. Yeah, that's not happening to Iowa. So
no.
Hopefully baseball, I'm just going to predict wins against everybody except Notre Dame, toss up 50-50.
I am too. I'll take that 2-1 layup, I think.
All right. With that being said, you got any other topics before we call it a night?
I don't think so, man. I haven't heard much football news going around lately, so
me either.
It's been pretty quiet. I imagine spring ball is going to fire up here in a couple weeks.
It is. Yeah, we'll have some spring ball news and notes probably in a week or two.
Yeah.
But with that being said, hopefully we can come back next week and we're just celebrating wins all around, all across the board.
That'd be good.
And we're riding high after a win over number 3 UCLA. So with that being said, thank you everybody for listening. As always, have a great night and go Hawks.